radio crackled, static, then a voice, barely above a whisper. "Panthers not returning. Panthers not coming back." The staff officer's hand froze on the headset. 3 words, just 3 words. But they carried the weight of disaster. He turned slowly toward the farmhouse window. The evening light painted the Norman countryside in amber, peaceful, deceptive. Behind him, Brigadier General Martin Steiner stood motionless at the map table. His face was stone. His eyes tracked the empty road beyond the trees, waiting. One panther appeared on the horizon, engine smoking, tracks grinding against the gravel. The commander's hatch hung open. No one stood in it. Then another, limping, trailing oil, then a third. Steiner began counting under his breath. His lips moved, but no sound escaped. His fingers gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. 4, 5, 6. The 7th panther crawled into view just as the sun touched the tree line. Its turret was scorched black. The barrel pointed downward at an odd angle. Then silence. Just the sound of wind through broken shutters. The distant call of crows over burned fields. Steiner's hand trembled. He pressed it flat against the map to stop the shaking. 7 panthers from 78. 18 hours ago he had sent them forward with absolute confidence, with mathematical certainty, with the pride of a man who believed numbers never lied. 18 hours earlier, the morning sun had not yet broken the horizon when Steiner entered the command post. His boots struck the wooden floor in a steady rhythm, authority in every step. He was 48 years old, Prussian trained, a general who had risen through the ranks not by battlefield glory, but by something the old guard considered almost shameful: mathematics. While other officers spoke of courage and tradition, Steiner spoke of force ratios and penetration values. While they quoted Clausewitz, he quoted physics. And he had been right, every time. Until today. The map table dominated the room. France, Normandy. The Allied advance marked in red arrows. The German defensive line in blue. And there, arranged in perfect formation, 78 miniature Panther tanks. Steiner studied them with the satisfaction of a chess master surveying his pieces. Each one represented the finest medium tank Germany could produce: sloped armor, the long-barreled 75mm gun, speed and firepower in perfect balance, on paper unstoppable. Major Ernst Bergmann entered without knocking. He was 35 but looked older. The Eastern Front did that to men. He had seen what happened when mathematics met reality in the snow outside Stalingrad. "The intelligence report, sir." Bergmann placed the folder on the table. His movements were careful, deliberate, the way a man handles something dangerous. Steiner didn't look up. Summary. The Canadians have modified their tactics. They're deploying Piat teams aggressively, forward positions, close range. They've been training for 3 months specifically to engage our tanks. Steiner cut him off. His tone was not unkind, simply dismissive. "I've read this concern before, Major, from nervous captains who don't understand engineering. Sir, the PIATs are, spring-loaded bombs." Steiner finally looked up. His eyes were grey, cold as morning frost. "Effective range 100 meters. Against a Panther, they might damage a track, perhaps, but they cannot penetrate the armor. It's physics, Major Bergmann, not opinion." Bergmann said nothing. He had learned when silence was the wiser choice. Steiner moved one of the Panther models forward with his index finger. "One Panther can engage targets effectively at 1,000 meters. At that range, a Sherman cannot penetrate our frontal armor. The mathematics are simple, elegant even." And he moved another Panther, then another. 1 Panther equals 5 Shermans. That's not propaganda, it's ballistics. 78 Panthers equal E. He paused, letting the number settle in the room. 390 Shermans. The Canadians don't have 390 Shermans in this sector, Bergman said quietly. Precisely. Steiner straightened. He picked up a photograph from the desk. It showed a younger version of himself in a classroom at the War Academy, surrounded by officers who had mocked him, called him the mathematics professor, said real soldiers won with blood and courage, not calculations. He had spent 15 years proving them wrong. "This is my moment, Major." His voice dropped, not quite a whisper, but something private. "They said theory fails in practice, that warfare cannot be reduced to equations. Today, I prove otherwise." Bergman watched his commander's face. He saw something there that made his chest tighten. Not anger, not fear, pride, the most dangerous emotion a general can carry into battle. "Sir, I recommend we position the Panthers defensively. Let the Canadians attack uphill, force them to—" "No," the word was final. "Defensive warfare is for men without superior equipment. We have Panthers, we use them." Steiner placed both hands on the map table, leaned forward. His shadow fell across the miniature tanks like a prophet, blessing his flock. 2nd Battalion takes the northern approach. 3rd Battalion secures the village to the east. They advance at dawn. They hold their positions. They destroy any enemy armor that appears. And if the Canadians employ their new tactics, then physics will teach them a lesson. Steiner's smile was thin, humorless. "You cannot change the laws of armor penetration with clever training, Major. Steel is steel. Mathematics is mathematics." He picked up his pen, signed the order without hesitation. "The Panthers move at 0600 hours. No withdrawal without my direct authorization, understood?" Bergman took the order, held it like a death warrant. "Understood, sir." Across the battlefield, in a tent that smelled of canvas and wet earth, Sergeant Callum Fraser studied the same map. He was 28, Scottish descent. His grandfather had fought in the Great War and told him stories about officers who treated men like numbers on a page. Fraser had promised himself he would never be that kind of leader. 78 Panthers. Lieutenant Richard Hughes pointed at the intelligence markers. "Confirmed this morning, fresh from training depots in Germany, new models, full crews." Fraser didn't respond immediately. He was looking at a photograph pinned to the map. 4 men standing beside a Sherman tank, smiling, confident. 3 of them were dead now, killed by a Panther 3 months ago. 1 shot from 800 meters. The Sherman had brewed up so fast the crew never had a chance to bail out. Fraser had been in the tank behind them, had watched it happen, had listened to Danny screaming on the radio until the ammunition cooked off and the screaming stopped. "How long do we have?" Fraser's voice was rough, like gravel. "They'll reach blocking positions by mid-morning. If they dig in, we'll never dislodge them. The entire offensive stops here." Hughes tapped the map. 2 months minimum delay. "Nay, so we have to break them. Today." "Yes." Fraser nodded slowly. He reached up and touched the photograph. Danny's face, 22 years old, never even got to fire his gun. "What's the plan?" Hughes pulled out a second map. This one covered in pencil marks, arrows, distances, fields of fire. "We don't fight them at range, we refuse their advantage. Piat teams infiltrate the village at dawn, get close, 30 to 50 meters, hit their tracks, their vision blocks, their engine decks. Not trying to kill the tank, just blind it, cripple it. And when they're immobilized? That's where you come in." Hughes looked at Fraser. "You and the other Firefly commanders, you wait. Let the Piats do their work. Then you hit them from the flank. Side armor, rear armor. where the 17-pounder can punch through. Fraser studied the map, his mind calculating angles, timing. The margin for error was razor thin. How many casualties are we expecting? Hughes was quiet for a long moment. 40%. The number hung in the air like smoke. 40% to kill 78 Panthers. To save 2,000 men over the next 2 months, yes. Fraser looked at the photograph again, at Danny's smile, at the 3 other faces that would never grow old. When do we start? Lieutenant Klaus Werner was 23 years old. He had graduated from the Panzer training school 6 months ago, top of his class in gunnery, second in tactics. This was his first combat deployment. He stood beside his Panther in the pre-dawn darkness. The tank was beautiful, elegant even. The sloped armor caught the moonlight like the hull of a ship. The long gun barrel stretched forward like a promise. His crew was good. Young, like him, but well-trained. The driver, Hans, was 19. The gunner, Otto Fischer, was 26. Veterans compared to Werner. Sir? Hans's voice cracked slightly, nervous. What if they have more tanks than intelligence says? Werner smiled, the way officers smile when they want to appear confident. Then we destroy more tanks than expected. But his hand betrayed him. It went to his breast pocket, to the letter he had written to his wife that morning. My dearest Elizabeth, by the time you read this, the battle will be over. I have a new Panther, the best tank in the world. I will come home safely, I promise. He had sealed it, addressed it, but hadn't sent it yet. Superstition, maybe, or the small voice in his head that whispered promises were dangerous things in war. Lieutenant Werner. A runner appeared, saluted. The general wants to see you. Werner found Steiner in the command post. The older man was drinking coffee. Real coffee, not the ersatz garbage the enlisted men suffered through. You sent for me, sir? Steiner set down his cup. Studied Werner with those cold grey eyes. How old are you, Lieutenant? 23, sir. I was 23 once. I thought I knew everything. A pause. I was wrong about many things, but not about mathematics. Werner wasn't sure how to respond. He stood at attention. You're the youngest Panther commander in this battalion, Steiner continued. Some of the other officers think that's a liability. They say you lack experience. Sir, Steiner raised a hand. I don't care what they think. Experience is valuable. But it can also teach the wrong lessons, make men timid, hesitant. He stood, walked to the map table. You know what your Panther can do. You've studied the specifications, the armor thickness, the gun performance, the engagement ranges. Yes, sir. Frontal armor, 80 millimeters at 55 degrees, effective thickness, 140 millimeters. The gun can penetrate 140 millimeters of vertical armor at 1,000 meters. Exactly. Steiner's voice carried approval. You understand the mathematics. That understanding will keep you alive. The enemy may be brave, they may be clever, but they cannot change physics. Werner felt his confidence swell. The general believed in him, in the numbers, in the certainty of steel and science. What if we encounter their new tactics, sir? The intelligence report mentioned infantry weapons. Steiner waved dismissively. Ignore them. Your tank is built to engage other tanks, anti-tank guns, not individual soldiers with pipe bombs. If you see infantry, suppress them with your machine gun and keep moving. Yes, sir? Remember, Lieutenant, the Panther is invincible at the ranges that matter. Keep your distance. Use your superior optics and gun. Kill them before they can effectively engage you. Steiner placed a hand on Werner's shoulder. Make me proud. Werner saluted, turned to leave. And Lieutenant? Steiner's voice stopped him. After this is over, send that letter to your wife. Tell her you were right. Tell her mathematics kept you safe. Werner touched his breast pocket, nodded. He would never send that letter. The 78 Panthers moved out as the eastern sky turned from black to grey. Werner stood in his commander's hatch. The wind was cool against his face. The rumble of engines surrounded him like thunder. 78 mechanical heartbeats. It felt like power, like inevitability. 2nd Battalion took the northern route. 3rd Battalion, Werner's unit, headed for the village. The buildings were ruins already, shattered by artillery weeks ago. Good defensive terrain if you didn't mind ghosts. The radio crackled. Battalion commanders reporting readiness. Werner's hands were steady on the hatch rim. His heart rate was elevated but controlled. This was it, the moment all the training had prepared him for. Driver, advance! The Panther lurched forward, smooth, powerful, unstoppable. At 11:47 in the morning, the first report reached Steiner's command post. Panther 214 reports contact. Enemy infantry in the village, engaging with... The transmission cut off. Static. Then silence. Bergman looked up from the communications station. Try to re-establish contact. Nothing. Steiner frowned. Probably radio malfunction. The buildings interfere with transmission. Continue. But his hand moved unconsciously to the map table. To the miniature Panther marked 214. At 11:53, another report. 3rd Battalion reports multiple Panthers under attack. Visibility limited. Taking fire from unknown positions. Request... Static again. Steiner's frown deepened. How many Panthers? 3 confirmed losses, sir. Possibly more. 3? Steiner's voice sharpened. In 6 minutes? Bergman said nothing, but his face had gone pale. The reports kept coming. Faster now. Panicked voices cutting through static. Hit from the side. Infantry everywhere. Can't see them. Werner is down. Werner is... At 12:04, a runner burst into the command post. His uniform was covered in dust. His eyes were wide. 3rd Battalion reports 7 Panthers destroyed in the village. 7, sir. They're asking permission to withdraw. The room went silent. Steiner stared at the messenger, then at Bergman, then at the map. 7 Panthers in 17 minutes. No, he said. His voice was hoarse. No, that's impossible. Check the reports. They must be exaggerating. Confusing damage with destruction. 7 Panthers cannot be lost in... Sir! Bergman stood, walked to the map table. His hand hovered over the miniature tanks. Then one by one, he picked them up. Removed them from the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Panthers. Gone. Steiner's hand shot out, grabbed Bergman's wrist. What are you doing? Confirming the losses, sir. Bergman's voice was steady, but his eyes held something Steiner had never seen there before. Pity. These are confirmed, destroyed, visual confirmation, multiple witnesses. The Canadians are not fighting the way we expected them to. Steiner looked down at the map, at the gap where 11 Panthers had stood just minutes ago. His hand began to shake. He pulled it back, pressed it against his leg where no one could see, but Bergman saw. And in that moment, the equation that Steiner had built his career on began to crack. Mathematics was supposed to be certain, absolute, unchanging. But somewhere in the ruins of a French village, the Canadians had changed the variables, and 78 minus 11 was just the beginning. Steiner stood frozen at the map table. 11 miniature Panthers lay scattered beside the board. Small pieces of painted metal that had minutes ago represented living men and functioning machines. Bergman's hand still hovered over the remaining tanks, waiting for the next report, the next confirmation, the next deletion. Sir? The communications officer's voice cracked. 2nd Battalion reports contact. Multiple... Tell them to attack. Steiner's voice cut through the room like a blade. All units, advance immediately. Don't let the enemy consolidate their positions. Bergman's head snapped up. Sir, that's exactly what they want. Exactly. They're drawing us into close terrain where we will destroy them with superior firepower. Steiner's grey eyes had gone hard. Diamond hard. The PIATs are a nuisance. Nothing more. Our Panthers can absorb infantry attacks. They're designed for it. 11 tanks say otherwise. The room went silent. Every officer froze. No one spoke to the general that way. Steiner turned slowly. His face was pale. 2 spots of colour burned high on his cheeks. What did you say? Bergman didn't flinch. 11 tanks destroyed in 17 minutes. By the tactics you told us to ignore, sir. For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of radio static, distant, like thunder before a storm. Then Steiner moved, 3 steps, close enough that Bergman could see the fine tremor in his commander's jaw. I don't need lectures on tactics from an officer who lost an entire company at Stalingrad. His voice was quiet, venomous. You retreated then. You want to retreat now? It's a pattern, Major. Bergman's face went white, but he held Steiner's gaze. I retreated at Stalingrad because the alternative was annihilation, just like now. We have Panthers, they have Shermans and pipe bombs. The mathematics are wrong, the shout echoed in the farmhouse. Bergman's chest heaved. He had never raised his voice to a superior officer in his life. Steiner's hand went to his sidearm, touched the holster, didn't draw, just rested there. You will transmit my orders, Major, or I will find someone who will. Bergman stared at his commander, at the man who had been right about everything until today, at the pride that was about to kill 67 more young men. He saluted, turned to the radio operator. All units, General Steiner orders immediate advance. Engage enemy forces with maximum aggression. Do not withdraw without direct authorization. The radio operator began transmitting. Bergman walked to the window, looked out at the empty road where 7 Panthers would eventually return. He had followed orders at Stalingrad too, until it was too late to save anyone. In the village, Klaus Werner's Panther crawled through rubble-strewn streets. The ruins pressed close on both sides. Buildings reduced to broken teeth. Walls that had once been homes, now just obstacles. Cover for an enemy he couldn't see. Driver slow, Werner's voice was tight. Gunner scan left. Otto Fischer traversed the turret. The electric motors whined. The long barrels swept across shattered windows and collapsed doorways. Nothing visible, sir. But Werner's instincts screamed danger. This felt wrong. The streets were too quiet. The buildings too perfect for ambush. Second platoon, this is Werner. Recommend we halt and movement. A flash in a basement window. Contact left! The explosion came before Otto could react. A dull thump. Not the crack of a tank gun. Something else. The Panther lurched. Stopped. The engine revved, but the tracks didn't grip. Track damaged, Artage! Hans shouted from the driver's position. We're immobilized. Werner felt his stomach drop. An immobilized tank was a dead tank. Every tanker knew that. Gunner, traverse to... The second explosion hit the side armor. Werner was thrown against the turret ring. His head cracked against metal. Stars burst across his vision. Infantry weapons! Otto was screaming. They're everywhere! I can't... The third hit came from behind. From a weapon Werner had never even considered a threat. A Piat team in a cellar they had already passed. The shell punched through the thinner rear armor. Werner had 1 second, maybe 2. Time enough to understand what was happening, time enough to reach for the letter in his breast pocket, time enough to think. The mathematics were wrong. Then the ammunition in the hull began to cook off. The radio transmission was brief, a scream, a roar of flame, then static. Steiner heard it. He was staring at the map when Werner's voice cut through the speakers. Young, terrified, burning. Then nothing. The communications officer looked up. His face was ashen. "Sir, that was Lieutenant Werner, I think." "Get me a status report." Steiner's voice was mechanical, empty. "Confirm all casualties." "Sir, we're receiving reports of..." "Sir." "Confirm them." The shout made everyone in the room jump. "I want numbers, exact numbers, not guesses, not panic. Numbers!" Bergman turned from the window. "The numbers don't matter anymore, sir. The pattern does. Every Panther that enters close terrain is destroyed within minutes. The Canadians have found our weakness." "We have no weakness." Steiner slammed his hand on the table. The miniature tanks jumped. Several fell over. "The Panther is superior in every measurable way. Armor, gun, optics, speed. The problem is execution. The crews aren't using proper tactics." "The crews are dying."
"Then they're dying wrong!" The words hung in the air. Obscene. Terrible. Steiner seemed to hear them for the first time. His face went slack. He looked at his hand, still flat on the table, still trembling. "I meant..." He tried to form words, failed, tried again. "I meant they're not following doctrine. If they maintain distance, if they use their range advantage, if they..." A runner burst through the door, mud splattered, gasping.
"3rd Battalion reports 15 more Panthers destroyed in the village. They're requesting permission to withdraw immediately. The commander says they're being slaughtered." 15. 11 plus 15 equals 26. Steiner did the math automatically, a reflex, like breathing. 78 minus 26 equals 52. 52 Panthers left in less than 2 hours. No withdrawal. His voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Tell them to push through. Get to open terrain where they can maneuver." "Sir, there is no open terrain. The Canadians are in every building, every cellar, every..." "Tell them." The runner fled. Bergman walked to the map table, picked up 26 more miniature tanks, placed them in a neat row beside the first 11. 37 Panthers, 37 crews, 37 Klaus Werners who would never send their letters home. Steiner stared at the row of dead tanks. His creation, his certainty, his proof that mathematics governed war, all reduced to toys beside a map. "It's not supposed to be like this." His voice was barely a whisper. The calculations were perfect, the force ratios, the armor values, everything was perfect on paper, Bergman finished. "But war isn't fought on paper, sir. It's fought by men who adapt, who change the rules when the rules favor their enemy. You can't change the rules of physics. The Canadians just did." Sergeant Callum Fraser watched through his periscope as another Panther died. His Sherman Firefly was hidden in a copse of trees, camouflaged, patient. The long 17-pounder gun pointed at a gap between 2 ruined buildings. He had been here for 40 minutes, waiting, while Piat teams did their bloody work in the village. The Panther appeared exactly where Fraser expected it. Reversing, trying to escape the close-quarters hell that the village had become. Gunner, target, Panther. Rear aspect, range 300 meters. Lachlan Reed, his 20-year-old gunner, laid the crosshairs on the engine deck. Identified. Fire. The 17-pounder roared. The shell crossed the distance in a fraction of a second, punched through the thinner rear armor, detonated inside the engine compartment. The Panther shuddered, stopped. Smoke poured from the vents. "Driver, reverse. New position." The Sherman backed deeper into the trees. Fraser had learned the hard way. Shoot and move. Never stay static. The Germans were good. If they spotted you, you died. But today, the Germans weren't seeing anything until it was too late. "Sarge," Lackland's voice was tight. "That's the fourth one, in an hour." "Fifth," Fraser corrected. "You missed the one at 11:30. "Jesus." Fraser said nothing. He was thinking about Danny, about the panther that had killed him from 800 meters away, about how powerless they had been at that range. Not anymore. Now the Germans were the ones dying before they understood what hit them. He felt no joy in it, no satisfaction, just a grim certainty that this was the only way to win. Get close, fight dirty, accept casualties, make them pay a price that mathematics couldn't calculate. At 2 in the afternoon, Bergman placed the report in front of Steiner. 47 Panthers remaining, 31 confirmed destroyed. Geo Steiner didn't look up. He was writing pages and pages of calculations, armor thickness, penetration values, engagement ranges, as if enough mathematics could make reality obey. "That's 40% casualties," Bergman's voice was gentle, like speaking to a wounded man, "in less than 3 hours. I'm aware of the percentage. Sir, we need to withdraw, consolidate what we have left. The Villas Junction isn't worth—" "It's worth everything!" Steiner's head snapped up. His eyes were wild, red-rimmed. "If we lose Villas, the entire defensive line collapses. The Allies push straight through to Germany. This position determines whether we hold for 2 months or 2 weeks. And if we lose all 78 Panthers trying to hold it? We won't, we can't. The mathematics—" Steiner's voice trailed off. He looked down at his calculations, at the pages covered in numbers that had stopped meaning anything. For the first time, doubt crept into his voice, a hairline crack in granite. "How are they doing this?" Bergman sat down, slowly, like a man settling a heavy burden. "I spoke to one of the survivors from 3rd Battalion. He said the Canadians don't fight like we expected. They use their infantry to get close. 30 meters, 40, too close for our guns to depress. Then they hit the tracks, damage the vision blocks, create chaos. Infantry can't destroy a Panther. They don't have to, they just have to stop it, blind it. Then their Firefly tanks appear from positions we never identified and kill us from the side." Steiner shook his head. "No, that requires perfect coordination, perfect timing. They can't, they can, they have. 31 times today." The number hung between them. Steiner stood abruptly, walked to the window. Outside, the afternoon sun painted everything gold, beautiful, indifferent to the dying. "We'll change tactics." His voice was steadier now, controlled. "Pull back to Hill 247. Make them attack uphill. Force them into open ground where our advantages matter." "Sir." "Give the order, Major." Bergman looked at his commander's back, at the rigid spine, the shoulders that refused to slump. He had seen this before. At Stalingrad. Officers clinging to failed plans because admitting failure meant admitting they had killed their own men for nothing. "Yes, sir." The withdrawal began at 14:30 hours. On paper, it was a tactical redeployment, a shift to more favorable terrain. In reality, it was 47 Panthers trying to escape a battlefield they no longer controlled. The Canadians didn't let them go. Fraser's Firefly was moving now, following the retreating Germans. His commander, Lieutenant Hughes, had been explicit. "Don't let them regroup. Don't give them time to set up on that hill. Stay close. Stay aggressive." So Fraser stayed close. A Panther appeared ahead, moving fast, trying to put distance between itself and the village. Its commander stood in the hatch, looking backward, watching for pursuit, not watching for the Firefly hidden in the farm lane to his left. Target. Identified. Fire! The Panther slewed sideways, stopped, began to burn. They kept moving. Another Panther, then another. The Germans were trying to retreat and fight simultaneously. It was impossible. Every time they stopped to engage, Canadian infantry closed in. Every time they ran, fireflies appeared from unexpected angles. In 30 minutes of retreat, 12 more Panthers died. At 1600 hours, Bergmann delivered the final count. 35 Panthers left, sir. 43 destroyed. Steiner sat in his chair. He hadn't moved for 20 minutes. His hands lay flat on the armrests, perfectly still. No tremor now, just absolute rigidity. A man turned to stone. 55% casualties. Yes, sir. In 5 hours. Yes.
Steiner's eyes focused on nothing, on mathematics that had betrayed him, on certainty that had dissolved like morning fog. I was wrong. The words came out barely above a whisper. Not about the tanks, about everything. Bergman said nothing. I thought... Steiner's voice cracked. I thought if the numbers were right, if the calculations were perfect, then we would win. That's how the world works. That's how it's supposed to work. The world doesn't work on paper, sir.
But it should. There was something broken in Steiner's voice, something beyond repair. If mathematics can't predict this, then nothing can. If logic fails, then all we have left is chaos. He looked up at Bergman. His eyes were those of a man staring into an abyss. I killed them, Werner. All of them. I killed them with mathematics. Sir, 35 Panthers are still out there, still dying. And I don't know how to save them. For the first time in his career, Martin Steiner had no answer, no calculation, no certainty, just the weight of 43 dead men and the knowledge that he had sent them to their deaths because he believed numbers never lied. But numbers didn't account for the human factor, for innovation, for men like Fraser who changed the equation by refusing to fight the battle Steiner had prepared for. Bergman stood, walked to the radio. What are you doing? Ending this. Bergman picked up the transmitter. All units, this is Major Bergman. Execute immediate withdrawal to secondary defensive line. All Panthers are to disengage and fall back. Acknowledge. Major, I didn't authorize I know. Steiner rose from his chair. His hand went to his holster. Drew the Luger, pointed it at Bergman's back. I could have you shot for this. Bergman didn't turn around, kept speaking into the radio, coordinating the retreat, saving what could still be saved. Yes, sir, you could. This is mutiny. Yes, sir. You're ending my career. I'm saving 35 lives. Bergman finally turned, looked at the pistol, at Steiner's shaking hand. Shoot me if you want, but I won't let you kill more men for a position we can't hold. Not with mathematics, not with pride, not with anything. Steiner's finger touched the trigger. The Luger wavered. In his mind, he saw Werner's face. Young, confident, believing in the numbers his general had promised would keep him safe. He saw the 11 miniature tanks, then the 26, then the 43. He saw the truth that had taken 43 deaths to reveal. He had been wrong about everything that mattered. The pistol lowered, then dropped. It hit the floor with a dull thud. Steiner's knees buckled. He caught himself on the desk, stayed upright through sheer will, but something in him had broken, something fundamental.
How many will make it back? His voice was hollow. Bergman finished the radio transmission, turned. I don't know, sir. Maybe half, maybe less. The Canadians are still hunting them. And tomorrow? When Berlin asks why I lost an entire Panther battalion in one day. Tomorrow you tell them the truth, that the enemy adapted faster than we did, that they found a way to beat our best weapon, and that you learned the lesson before you lost all 78. Steiner looked at the map.
At the 35 Panthers still marked on it, 35 men still alive because Bergman had disobeyed him. Will history remember it that way? History remembers what we write, sir. Write that you saved 35 men when you could have killed them all. But Steiner knew better. History would remember the number that mattered, 78 Panthers sent forward, and the number that came home. The sun was setting when the first Panther appeared on the horizon. Steiner stood outside the command post, alone. He had been standing there for 20 minutes, watching the empty road, waiting. Behind him, through the farmhouse window, he could hear Bergman coordinating the final withdrawal, calm, professional, doing what Steiner should have done 6 hours ago. The Panther came slowly, limping. One track was damaged, grinding against the road wheels with a sound like breaking teeth. The commander's hatch hung open, but no one stood in it. Steiner's lips moved, counting silently. 1. The Panther crawled past, didn't stop. The driver was probably half deaf from combat, exhausted, trying to reach somewhere safe before the tank gave out completely. Steiner kept watching. 5 minutes passed. The evening light turned from gold to amber to deep orange. Shadows stretched across the fields like reaching fingers. Another Panther appeared. This one moved faster but trailed black smoke from the engine compartment. Something was burning inside, not catastrophically, not yet, but the crew would have to abandon it soon. 2. Then a third. Its turret was scorched black. The barrel pointed downward at an odd angle, bent by an impact Steiner could only imagine. How hard did you have to hit a 75mm gun to bend it? How much force? How much violence? 3. The mathematics of destruction were different than the mathematics of design. Steiner was learning that. Too late. But learning. A fourth Panther. A fifth. Both damaged. Both carrying crews that would probably never crew a tank again. Not because they were wounded, because they had seen what happened when steel met tactics. When pride met reality. 4. 5. The gaps between arrivals grew longer, minutes stretched, the sun touched the horizon, everything turned red. A sixth Panther appeared just as darkness began to claim the sky. This one was in better shape, no visible damage, but it moved with a hesitation that spoke of internal problems, transmission, engine, the kinds of failures that happened when you pushed a machine beyond its limits. 6. Steiner stood in the gathering dark, waiting, hoping, please let there be more. Please let the mathematics be wrong about this too. Let there be 8, 10, 20. Prove that I didn't kill 68 men because I believed in armor thickness and gun caliber more than I believed in human adaptability, please. The 7th Panther arrived 40 minutes later, in full darkness. Its headlights were off, moving by moonlight, crew so exhausted they could barely navigate. It passed Steiner without acknowledgement, disappeared into the depot area where mechanics would discover damage beyond field repair. 7. Steiner waited another hour, standing in the cold, watching the empty road. No 8th Panther came. At 2200 hours, Bergman emerged from the command post. He carried a blanket and draped it over Steiner's shoulders without a word. All units have reported in, sir. 7 Panthers, confirmed. Steiner didn't respond. His eyes remained fixed on the dark road. The crews are being debriefed. Medical is treating the wounded. Maintenance is bull. Bring me the personal effects. Bergman paused. Sir? The personal effects from the destroyed tanks. Whatever the recovery teams salvaged, bring them to me. Sir, that can wait until Now, Major. They brought the items in wooden crates, small things, the pieces of 71 lives that had survived when the men didn't. Photographs, letters, watches stopped at the moment of death. A harmonica, a child's drawing, a wedding ring melted and fused to a piece of turret armor. Steiner sat at the map table. The miniature Panthers had been cleared away. Now there was just him and these fragments. He picked up each item, read each letter, studied each photograph. Lieutenant Klaus Werner's effects were in the third crate. The letter was still sealed in its envelope. The paper was scorched at one edge but intact. The address written in careful script: Frau Elisabeth Werner, Schillerstrasse, 14, München. Steiner's hands trembled as he opened it. He had no right. He knew that, but he needed to understand what he had taken from the world. My dearest Elizabeth, by the time you read this, the battle will be over. I have a new Panther, Panzer II 2-3. The instructors say it is the best medium tank ever built. Sloped armor that can defeat any Allied gun. A weapon that can kill from distances where the enemy cannot touch us. General Steiner himself spoke to me this morning. He said, I understand the mathematics of war. That understanding will keep me safe. I believe him. He is the smartest officer I have ever met. When he explains the armor values and penetration formulas, it all makes perfect sense. How can we lose when the numbers are on our side? So do not worry, my love. I will fight from a distance where the Panther's advantages matter most. I will use superior technology and training. I will come home to you. I promise. Your Klaus. The letter fell from Steiner's hands. He sat perfectly still. No sound, no movement, just a man confronting what his certainty had created. Klaus Werner believed in the mathematics because Steiner taught him to believe. Believed he would be safe because his general promised that steel and calculations would protect him. Believed right up until the moment a Piat bomb hit his track and a Canadian shell punched through his side armor and his world became fire. Steiner picked up the letter, read it again and again. I will come home to you, I promise. 71 promises, 71 lies, 71 men who believed their general knew what he was doing. Bergman entered quietly, saw what Steiner was reading, started to leave. Stay, Steiner's voice was rough. You should see this. You should see what my pride cost. Sir, read it. That's an order. Bergman read Werner's letter. When he finished, his face was pale. He trusted you. Yes. He believed the mathematics would save him? Yes. And you let him believe it? Yes. Steiner folded the letter carefully, placed it back in its envelope. I will deliver this personally to Elizabeth Werner.
I will tell her that her husband died believing he was safe, that I taught him to trust in steel instead of wisdom, that I was wrong. Sir, you don't have to. I killed him, Major. The least I can do is tell his widow the truth. Steiner stood, walked to his desk, pulled out paper and pen. What are you doing? Writing my report, the truth, all of it. The report took 3 hours to write. Steiner's hand moved across page after page. No excuses, no tactical justifications.
Just facts presented with the same mathematical precision he had used to plan the battle. After action report, Operation Villas Junction Defense, August 8, 1944. Panthers committed 78 Panthers returned, 7. Casualties 71 tanks destroyed, 284 crew killed or captured. Casualty rate 91%, cause of failure, commander error. Specifically, the undersigned. I based tactical planning on technical specifications while ignoring intelligence regarding enemy tactical innovation. I dismissed warnings from experienced officers. I prioritized mechanical advantage over human adaptability. The enemy did not defeat our tanks. They defeated our thinking. They refused to engage at ranges where our advantages mattered. They used terrain to negate our superior optics and gun range. They employed combined arms tactics, infantry, anti-tank weapons and armor. In coordination, we failed to anticipate or counter. Most critically, they were willing to accept casualties to achieve their objective. They understood that winning required sacrifice. I understood only that superior equipment should guarantee victory. I was wrong. Recommendations: 1. Never deploy armor without close infantry support in restricted terrain. 2. Never assume enemy will fight according to our tactical preferences. 3. Never trust mathematics alone. War is fought by humans who change the rules. Conclusion: 71 Panthers were lost due to command failure. The fault is mine alone. I request immediate relief from command and accept all consequences for this disaster. The surviving crews performed with courage and skill. They deserve better leadership than I provided. Brigadier General Martin Steiner. He signed it, dated it, sealed it. Bergman was waiting when Steiner emerged from his office at 0200 hours. It's done? Yes. Steiner handed him the report. See that it reaches General Headquarters by morning. Bergman took it, felt the weight of honesty in his hands. They'll relieve you. I know. Your career is over. I know that too. Steiner walked to the window. Outside, mechanics were working on the 7 Panthers by lamplight, trying to repair what could be repaired, save what could be saved. Major, what was the Canadian casualty rate? Bergman consulted his notes. Intelligence had interrogated several captured Canadian soldiers. 41%. They lost 12 Sherman tanks and 67 infantry, nearly half their attacking force. Steiner absorbed this. So they won by accepting losses I would never have authorized. Yes, sir. They understood something I didn't. That winning sometimes requires paying a terrible price, and that the price of losing is worse. Yes, Steiner nodded slowly. Make sure that's in my report. Make sure they understand the Canadians didn't win because they had better equipment. They won because they had better judgment. 3 days later, General Maximilian von Richter arrived from Army Group Headquarters. He was 62, old Prussian military aristocracy, the kind of officer who believed in honor and tradition more than mathematics. He stood in the command post, reading Steiner's report for the second time. His face was granite. You take full responsibility. Yes, sir. You blame yourself entirely. The fault is mine. Von Richter set down the report, studied Steiner with cold blue eyes. You killed 71 men in one day because you trusted machines more than you trusted experienced officers. Yes, sir. You ignored warnings, dismissed tactical intelligence, refused to adapt when the situation changed. Yes, sir. Von Richter was silent for a long moment. Then, at least you have the courage to admit it. He pulled out a folder, opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Effective immediately, you are relieved of command. Major Bergman assumes temporary command of remaining forces. You will report to operations planning in Berlin, a staff position. You will push papers until the war ends or until we decide what to do with an officer who had the talent to be brilliant and the pride to be disastrous. Steiner accepted the paper. Read his own death sentence, career over, legacy destroyed, reduced to a cautionary tale. I understand, sir. Do you? Von Richter's voice was sharp. Do you understand that we are losing this war in part because of men like you, men who believe technology will save us when our real problem is that we stopped thinking, that we became rigid while our enemies became flexible? I understand now, sir. Now. Von Richter's laugh was bitter. After 71 deaths. Well, consider it an expensive education. He turned to leave, paused at the door. For what it's worth, General Steiner, your report will be distributed throughout the Wehrmacht as an example of what happens when officers forget that war is fought by men, not machines. Your failure will teach others that's something. Small comfort, but the only comfort Steiner would receive. Bergman found him 2 hours later, packing his belongings. Sir, the men wanted me to tell you. The survivors, They don't blame you. Steiner paused, a photograph in his hands. His promotion to brigadier general 3 years ago. Surrounded by staff officers, all smiling, all confident in Germany's ultimate victory. They should. They said you taught them to think, to calculate, to use logic. Those who survived did so because they applied what you taught them. And the 71 who died? Bergman had no answer for that. Steiner placed the photograph in his bag, face down. He wouldn't look at it again. Major Bergman, you saved 35 lives by disobeying me. I want that in the official record. Sir, that would implicate you further. I'm already implicated, but you deserve recognition for having the courage I lacked, the courage to stop a disaster in progress. He closed his bag, looked around the office one final time. Teach them what I learned too late. Mathematics can tell you if something is possible, but only wisdom tells you if it's right. I had the first, you have the second. That's why you'll be a better general than I ever was. Sir, take care of those 7 crews. Get them home if you can. They've earned it. Steiner walked out of the command post, climbed into the staff car that would take him to Berlin, to obscurity, to whatever remained of a life built on certainty that had crumbled in one terrible day. The car drove past the depot, past the 7 Panthers, past the mechanics who paused their work and stood at attention as he passed. Respect for the rank, not the man. Steiner knew the difference. He didn't look back. Epilogue. 1946, Martin Steiner lived in a small apartment in München. 2 rooms, a kitchen. No decorations except a single photograph on the wall. 78 young men in tank commander uniforms, taken the morning they departed for France. All smiling, all confident. 71 of them were dead. Steiner looked at that photograph every morning, said their names: Klaus Werner, Otto Fischer, Hans Bergmann, all of them a ritual of remembrance, of penance. He had visited Elisabeth Werner in October 1945, delivered Klaus's letter personally, told her the truth, that her husband had trusted him, that he had failed that trust. She had listened, silent, then thanked him for his honesty and asked him to leave. He visited Klaus's grave once a month, always alone, always carrying the weight of a promise he had made to a young man who believed mathematics would keep him safe. The apartment had no visitors. Steiner had become invisible. A man who had existed once in a war that had ended, in a role that no longer mattered. He worked in a factory, manual labor. His hands, once moving miniature tanks across maps, now assembled machine parts. Simple, mindless, exactly what he deserved. At night, he wrote, page after page, analyzing what had gone wrong, not just at Villa's, but in his thinking, in his assumptions, in his soul. He was writing a book. The Mathematics of Failure, Lessons from Villa's Junction. It would never be published. He would never seek publication. This was for him. An accounting of his sins, a permanent record of hubris. On the first page he had written, I believed that if the calculations were correct, victory was certain. I was wrong. This is the story of how 71 men died, teaching me that numbers alone mean nothing. That wisdom comes from understanding what numbers cannot measure. That pride in our own intelligence is the most dangerous weapon we can deploy. This is my confession. 1963, Martin Steiner was 67 years old. Dying. The cancer had started in his lungs, years of breathing factory dust. Or perhaps just the body giving up on a man who had given up on himself. His grandson visited on a Wednesday afternoon. 9 years old. Curious about the old man in the hospital bed. Grandfather, Mother says you were a general. Steiner looked at the boy, saw innocence, the same innocence Klaus Werner had carried into battle. Once, a long time ago. Did you win many battles? Steiner was quiet for a long moment. Outside, München was rebuilding. New buildings rising where old ones had burned. Germany finding its way forward after everything had collapsed. No, I lost. Badly. Oh. The boy looked disappointed. What happened? How do you explain to a child that pride kills, that certainty is dangerous, that the smartest man in the room can be the most catastrophically wrong? I believed I knew everything. And because I believed it, I stopped listening. 71 men died because I wouldn't admit I might be wrong. The boy's eyes widened. 71? Yes. That's a lot. Yes, it is. Did you learn anything? From the mouths of children, Steiner smiled, thin, sad, but genuine. I learned that being smart is not the same as being wise. I learned that people matter more than plans. I learned that the moment you stop questioning yourself is the moment you become dangerous to everyone around you. The boy considered this with the seriousness only children can bring to profound truths. I'll remember that, grandfather. Good. Then maybe 71 men didn't die for nothing. Martin Steiner died 3 days later, April 17th, 1963. A small obituary in the München newspaper mentioned his military service but not his rank, a general who had become deliberately unmemorable. The funeral was held on a grey Thursday morning. 7 men attended, all in their 40s now, all wearing civilian clothes. But they stood like soldiers, they moved like soldiers, the surviving Panther commanders from Villers Junction. They didn't speak during the service, didn't offer eulogies. When the coffin was lowered, each placed a single flower on it. 7 flowers, white roses. Then they stood at attention for 60 seconds. A moment of silence, not for Steiner, for the 71 who hadn't made it home. As they walked away from the grave, one of them spoke quietly. He taught us mathematics. The Canadians taught us that mathematics isn't enough. Between the 2 lessons, we survived. Another nodded. He spent 18 years making sure we understood what he'd learned. Visited some of us, wrote to others, always the same message, don't be what I was. Strange way to honor the dead. Maybe, but it worked. I teach armor tactics now. I tell my students about villas every year. Show them that the best equipment in the world means nothing if you deploy it stupidly. They paused at the cemetery gate, looked back at the fresh grave. He died trying to teach us what he learned too late. Did he succeed? We're here, aren't we? 71 aren't. If we remember why, then yes, he succeeded. They left quietly. 7 men carrying a lesson purchased with 71 lives. Present day, the Bovington Tank Museum in England displays a Panther OSG in its main hall. Restored. Perfect. The sloped armor gleaming under carefully positioned lights. The placard reads, Panther Medium Tank Germany 1943 to 1945, considered one of the finest tanks of World War II. Superior armor, excellent gun, good mobility, yet often defeated by inferior Allied tanks through superior tactics. A group of visitors photographs it, marvels at its design, discusses its specifications. An old man stands apart from them, 92 years old, Canadian. He comes here once a year. His name is Callum Fraser. He looks at the Panther and remembers. 78 of them, one terrible day. The mathematics that said he should have lost, the tactics that said he could win, the price paid on both sides. 41% casualties, 67 of his men, friends, brothers, gone. But 2,000 lives saved over the next 2 months because the German advance stopped at Villers. Was it worth it? Fraser has spent 79 years trying to answer that question. He still doesn't know. He reaches out. touches the cold steel of the Panther's armor. "Your general was wrong," he whispers, "but he wasn't evil, just too sure of himself. We're all guilty of that sometimes." He thinks about the letter they found in one of the destroyed Panthers, a young German lieutenant writing to his wife, promising to come home. Fraser kept that letter for 40 years before he could bring himself to find Elizabeth Werner and return it. She was 75 by then, grateful, forgiving. "He believed what he was taught," she had said. "So did you. You both fought with courage. That's all anyone can do." Fraser steps back from the Panther. His grandson waits nearby, 12 years old, restless. "Grandfather, can we go? I want to see the modern tanks." Fraser smiles. "In a minute." He looks at the Panther one last time, at the monument to certainty, to mathematics, to the belief that technology alone can win wars. "The day we destroyed 71 of these," he says quietly, "we learned that the human element always matters more than the machine. Always." His grandson doesn't understand, not yet. But someday he will. Fraser walks toward the exit, past the Panther, past the lesson written in steel and blood. Behind him, the tank stands silent. Beautiful, deadly. Defeated not by better weapons, but by better thinking. 78 Panthers had rolled forward, confident in their superiority. 7 came back. And in that mathematics, 78 minus 71 equals 7, lies everything worth knowing about war. That pride kills, that innovation defeats rigidity, that men matter more than machines, that wisdom is earned in the hardest possible way. The Panther gleams in the museum light, perfect, preserved, a monument not to victory or defeat, but to a truth that every generation must learn again. The numbers are never as simple as they seem.